What happens when a passionate environmental lawyer discovers the man she fell for at a charity gala is the same corporate villain she's been fighting in court? And what happens when she's carrying his baby? Greetings, fellow dreamers. This tale is filled with love, secrets, and a twist you'll never forget. Let's dig in. Asterisk, the pregnancy test clattered to the marble floor of the Grand Regency Hotel's bathroom, its twin pink lines still mocking Sophia Chen as she pressed her back against the cold stall door. 3 months. It had been 3 months since she'd felt Gabriel Montenegro's hands worship her body like she was something sacred. Since she'd whispered her deepest fears into his chest while Dawn painted his penthouse windows gold. Now she stood in the same hotel where it all began, her simple black dress replaced by a rumpled blazer and jeans, her environmental law nonprofit's latest fundraiser happening just floors below. The irony tasted bitter on her tongue. Sophia. Riley's voice echoed off the bathroom tiles. You've been in here forever. Donors are asking about the Water Initiative presentation. Sophia stuffed the test into her purse, her hands trembling. She couldn't tell Riley, not yet, not when her best friend had sacrificed so much to help her organization survive another month of unpaid bills and legal battles against corporations that poisoned everything they touched. Coming, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. The ballroom buzzed with the same entitled energy she remembered. Crystal chandeliers casting shadows across faces that could write checks bigger than her yearly salary without blinking. But tonight felt different, heavier, like the air itself. Carried secrets. She was adjusting the microphone at the podium, preparing to beg strangers for money to save communities they'd never visit, when she saw him. Gabriel Montenegro stood near the bar, his dark hair catching the light, as he nodded at something James Harrison was saying. He looked exactly the same, devastating in a way that made her chest ache. The custom tuxedo, the quiet confidence, the green eyes that had seen straight through her carefully constructed walls. Their gazes met across the crowded room. Right. Time stopped. Gabriel's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the marble floor in a cascade of crystal and golden liquid. The sound cut through the elegant chatter like a gunshot. Sophia's hand instinctively moved to her still flat stomach, where their secret grew stronger every day. She saw the exact moment recognition hit him. The way his face went from shock to something raw and desperate that made her want to run. But Gabriel was already moving, pushing through the crowd with single-minded determination, his eyes never leaving hers. Sophia. Her name fell from his lips like a prayer when he reached her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. I looked for you. God, I looked everywhere. The hurt in his voice nearly broke her resolve. She'd spent 3 months convincing herself that their night together had been nothing more than a beautiful mistake. That a billionaire like Gabriel Montenegro could never want someone like her for longer than it took to chase away his loneliness. Gabriel, ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator's voice boomed through the microphone. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Sophia Chen, to discuss the urgent need for clean water initiatives. A spotlight blazed to life, bathing Sophia in harsh white light. 200 expectant faces turned toward her, but all she could see was Gabriel's intense stare, the way his jaw clenched as he stepped back into the shadows. She walked to the podium on unsteady legs. Her prepared speech about dying coral reefs and poisoned communities suddenly feeling inadequate. How could she talk about saving the world when her own life was falling apart? 3 months ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. I met someone who changed everything I thought I knew about hope. Gabriel went very still. They showed me that sometimes the most unexpected connections can ignite the kind of passion that moves mountains. But passion without action is just pretty words in expensive ballrooms. She clicked to her first slide, showing children in Bangladesh drinking from contaminated wells, their eyes bright with trust that someone, somewhere, would help them. Every day we delay, more children die from water that should give life, not take it. Every corporate decision that prioritizes profit over people is a choice to let suffering continue. Her eyes found Gabriel's in the crowd. The question isn't whether we have the resources to fix this. Do. The question is whether we have the courage to sacrifice our comfort for their survival. When she finished 20 minutes later, the applause was thunderous. But Gabriel had vanished. Sophia found him on the hotel's rooftop garden, the same hidden oasis where they'd first kissed. He stood at the edge, his hands gripping the railing as he stared out at the city lights below. "That was quite a speech," he said, without turning around. "Very inspiring, Gabriel. Why didn't you call me?" The words came out rough, pained. "I left my number with every environmental law firm in the city. I funded 3 clean water projects hoping you'd hear about it and contact me." The jasmine-scented air felt thick with unspoken truths. Sophia moved closer, her heels clicking against the stone pathway. "Because I know what I am to someone like you," she said quietly. "A charity case. A one-night distraction from your real life." Gabriel spun around, his green eyes blazing. "Is that really what you think? That what happened between us was just some rich man's whim?" Before she could answer, he was kissing her, desperate and demanding, his hands tangling in her hair like he was afraid she'd disappear again. And God help her, she kissed him back, her body remembering every touch, every whispered promise from their night together. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Gabriel pressed his forehead to hers. "I've been half alive without you, Sophia. Whatever walls you think exist between us, we can tear them down." Together, the word hung in the air like a challenge. Together, Sophia's hand moved to her stomach again, to the secret that would change everything. She opened her mouth to tell him about the baby, about the choice that would bind them forever or drive them apart completely. But footsteps on the stone path made them spring apart. James Harrison emerged from the shadows, his usually friendly face dark with something that looked like warning. Something in his business partner's tone made Gabriel's expression harden. "Whatever it is can wait." "No, it can't." James's eyes flicked to Sophia with what looked like pity, especially not with her here. Sophia felt ice form in her veins. What's that supposed to mean? James pulled out his phone, showing them a news article dated just hours ago. The headline made the world tilt sideways. Montenegro Enterprises. Under federal investigation for environmental cover-up, Gabriel went white. "That's impossible. Our renewable energy projects are completely clean, not the new ones," James said grimly. "The old toxic waste sites you inherited from your father's company? The ones you thought you'd buried deep enough that no one would ever find them?" Sophia stared at Gabriel, her heart shattering as the pieces fell into place. Toxic waste sites. "Sophia, I can explain the Riverside community in Ohio," she whispered, her voice hollow. "The groundwater contamination that killed 16 children last year. My law firm has been fighting that case for months. Responsible company was listed as a shell corporation, but we could never trace the real owners." Gabriel's silence. Was answer enough? The man she'd fallen in love with, the father of her unborn child, was the monster she'd been fighting in court for over a year. Sophia backed away, her hand protectively covering her stomach. "How many others? How many communities? Have you poisoned?" "I didn't know," Gabriel said desperately. "When I inherited the company, those sites were buried in shell companies and offshore accounts. I've been trying to clean them up. I swear by covering them up instead of taking responsibility." The words came out like knives. "By letting children drink poison while you played the environmental hero at charity galas." The baby kicked for the first time then, a flutter so faint she almost missed it. But the timing felt like the universe delivering its verdict. She was carrying the child of the man whose negligence had orphaned dozens of others. "Stay away from me," she whispered, then turned and ran. Gabriel's desperate calls echoing behind her as she disappeared into the night, carrying their secret and her shattered heart into an uncertain future. 6 weeks later, Sophia's morning sickness had evolved from an inconvenience to a daily torture that left her gripping courthouse bathroom sinks and praying. She could keep down enough water to function. The Riverside case had become her obsession. Her chance to make Gabriel Montenegro pay for every poisoned well, every dead child, every lie wrapped in charitable donations. She sat across from Rebecca Martinez in the sterile conference room of Martinez and Associates. the largest environmental law firm on the East Coast. Rebecca's offer had come out of nowhere: unlimited resources, it's a team of 12 lawyers, and a salary that would let Sophia actually pay rent without choosing between electricity and groceries. "We know your current firm is struggling," Rebecca said, sliding a contract across the polished table. "This case against Montenegro Enterprises is exactly the kind of high-profile environmental justice work we specialize in." Sophia's pen hovered over the signature line. Taking this job would mean abandoning the nonprofit that had been her life's work, leaving Riley to manage their tiny operation alone. But it would also mean having the firepower to actually win against Gabriel's army of corporate lawyers. "There's something else," Rebecca continued, her voice carefully neutral. "Gabriel Montenegro has been making inquiries about you. Persistent ones. Our investigators found evidence that he's hired at least 3 private detective firms to locate you." Sophia's blood went cold. She'd been careful since the gala, staying with Riley, using her friend's address for mail, avoiding anywhere Gabriel might think to look. But if he had professional help, he's also increased funding to environmental causes by 300%, Rebecca added, almost like he's trying to buy absolution. The baby chose that moment to remind her of its presence with a wave of nausea so violent she had to excuse herself to the bathroom. When she returned, pale and shaky, Rebecca's knowing look made her stomach clench for entirely different reasons. "Personal stakes make the best lawyers," Rebecca said quietly. "Whatever your connection to Montenegro, use it. Anger is a powerful motivator in court." Sophia signed the contract with trembling fingers, sealing her fate. 3 days later, she found herself in a penthouse office overlooking the city, surrounded by case files that painted Gabriel Montenegro as either a calculated environmental terrorist or a man drowning in his father's sins. The evidence was damning: 37 contaminated sites across 12 states, cleanup costs estimated in the billions, and a paper trail of cover-ups stretching back 15 years. But late at night, when the office was empty and her defenses were down, she'd remember the man who'd held her like she was precious, who'd confessed his fears about never being loved for who he truly was. The cognitive dissonance was eating her alive. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Sophia, please, don't hang up." Gabriel's voice sent lightning through her nervous system. She should disconnect immediately, preserve the attorney-client privilege that was already ethically murky. Instead, she found herself gripping the phone tighter. "How did you get this number?" "I'll find you anywhere you run," he said, and the quiet certainty in his voice should have terrified her. "We need to talk. There's nothing to discuss. My lawyers will handle everything through proper channels." A long pause. "Your lawyers?" Too late, she realized her mistake. Gabriel Montenegro hadn't become a billionaire by missing important details. "You're not just fighting my company," he continued, his voice changing, becoming harder. "You're leading the charge. This isn't about justice, Sophia. This is personal. 16 children died from your contaminated water," she shot back. "How much more personal does it get? I'm trying to fix this. I've allocated $2 billion to cleanup efforts, $2 billion in tax write-offs while you fight every lawsuit and deny responsibility. Your cleanup efforts are just more PR. Meet me," he said suddenly. "Neutral ground and one conversation. And if you still think I'm the monster you're painting me as, I'll stop trying to contact you." Sophia closed her eyes, one hand pressed to her growing belly. Every rational part of her brain screamed to refuse, to maintain professional distance. But the mother in her, the part that grew stronger every day, needed to look him in the eye and know what kind of man had fathered her child. 1 hour, she heard herself say. "The memorial garden at Riverside Cemetery, where your father's company buried Maria Santos." The line went quiet for so long she thought he'd hung up. "I'll be there," he finally said. Riverside Cemetery at midnight was a study in shadows and regret. Maria Santos had been 7 years old when she died of cancer caused by contaminated groundwater. Her grave was marked by a small headstone covered in plastic flowers and soggy teddy bears, offerings from a community that refused to let her be forgotten. Gabriel was already there when Sophia arrived, standing motionless beside the grave. He'd traded his expensive suits for jeans and a dark jacket. But even in casual clothes, he carried himself like a man accustomed to owning everything he surveyed. She loved butterflies, he said, without turning around. Her mother told me that. When I visited the family last month, Maria collected pictures of them, dreamed of becoming a scientist so she could protect endangered species. Sophia felt her carefully constructed armor crack. You visited her family and 43 others. Gabriel finally faced her, and the devastation in his green eyes was almost too much to bear. I know their names, Sophia. Their ages when they died, their dreams, their favorite foods. I carry every single one of them with me. The night air was cold enough to see their breath, creating ghostly clouds between them as they stared at each other across Maria's grave. Guilt doesn't absolve you of responsibility, Sophia said, but her voice lacked its earlier fire. Not asking for absolution, I'm asking for partnership. Gabriel stepped closer, careful not to cross into her personal space. You want justice for these families? Want to make sure this never happens again? We can destroy each other in court? Or we can work together to actually fix what's broken. Work together? Sophia laughed bitterly. You think I'm naive enough to trust you? To believe that Gabriel Montenegro, billionaire corporate shark, suddenly grew a conscience? I think you're pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. Sophia staggered backward, her hand instinctively covering her stomach. Gabriel's expression softened, becoming almost gentle. I've been watching you, Sophia. Not just through investigators. I've attended every hearing, every deposition. You're protecting yourself differently now. Your hand goes to your stomach when you're stressed. You've stopped drinking coffee. Tears burned her eyes. She'd been so careful, so determined to handle this alone. The timing works, Gabriel continued quietly. 3 months since the gala. You're carrying my child. Don't. The word came out broken. Don't you dare use this baby to manipulate me. I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm offering you the resources to win every case, to force real change instead of just collecting settlement money. I'm offering to be the father our child deserves. Our child. The words hit her like a sucker punch to the heart. Your company killed children, she whispered. How can I trust you with ours? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed. On Maria Santos's headstone, because I killed my own father to try to stop this. The confession hung in the air between them like a blade. Sophia felt the world tilt. What? Victor Montenegro died of a heart attack 18 months ago, Gabriel said, his voice hollow. What I didn't tell the investigators was that I triggered it. We were fighting about the toxic sites I'd just discovered. He refused to take responsibility, said the families were acceptable casualties for profit margins. So I told him I was going to expose everything, turn over all the evidence to federal prosecutors. Gabriel's hands were shaking now, his carefully controlled mask finally slipping. He went into cardiac arrest right there in his office. I could have called for help immediately. Instead, I watched him die, thinking about Maria Santos and all the others. I let my own father die because I thought it would make the guilt easier to bear. Sophia stared at him, seeing the man she'd fallen in love with, and the stranger who'd just confessed to patricide in the same breath. But it didn't, Gabriel continued, because I was still too much of a coward to publicly expose the cover-up. I thought I could fix it quietly, minimize the scandal. I chose protecting the company over protecting more children, and that makes me just as guilty as he was. A car door slammed somewhere in the distance, footsteps approaching through the darkness. Gabriel tensed, his head turning toward the sound. Did you come alone? He asked sharply, before Sophia could answer. Rebecca Martinez stepped into the circle of moonlight, flanked by 2 men in dark suits who looked more like federal agents than lawyers. Sophia, step away from him, Rebecca ordered, her voice carrying an authority that made Sophia's blood run cold. Rebecca. How did you? We've been monitoring his communications, one of the men said, flashing FBI credentials. Mr. Montenegro, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit environmental terrorism and obstruction of justice. As handcuffs clicked around Gabriel's wrists, he looked directly at Sophia, his green eyes burning with something that looked like betrayal. Did you know? He asked quietly. When you took the job with Martinez, did you know they were federal prosecutors building a criminal case? Sophia's heart stopped. She thought about Rebecca's offer, the unlimited resources, the too convenient timing. I didn't know, she whispered. But Gabriel was already being led away. Rebecca placed a firm hand on Sophia's shoulder. You did the right thing? He's a dangerous man, Sophia. The baby you're carrying deserves better than a father facing life in prison. As Gabriel's car disappeared into the night, Sophia pressed her hand to her belly and wondered if she'd just saved her child or condemned them, both to a future built on lies. The federal courthouse felt like a mausoleum, all marble columns and whispered conspiracies. Sophia sat in the gallery behind the prosecution table, 5 months pregnant now, and struggling to hide her growing belly beneath loose blazers. Gabriel hadn't looked at her once during the 3 weeks of testimony, his green eyes fixed straight. Ahead as witness after witness painted him as an environmental monster who'd inherited evil and chosen to perpetuate it. But today was different. Today, James Harrison took the stand. Gabriel's business partner looked like he hadn't slept in months, his usually polished appearance replaced by rumpled suits and hollow eyes. As he was sworn in, Gabriel finally turned around, and the betrayal in his expression was so raw that Sophia had to look away. Mr. Harrison, Rebecca Martinez, stood at the prosecutor's table like an avenging angel, her voice cutting through the courtroom's silence. How long have you been Gabriel Montenegro's business partner? 12 years, James answered, his voice barely above a whisper. And in that time, were you aware of the environmental contamination caused by Montenegro Enterprises' predecessor companies? James was quiet for so long that the judge prompted him to answer. When he finally spoke, his words shattered what was left of Gabriel's world. I helped orchestrate the cover-up. The courtroom erupted. Gabriel's lawyer jumped to his feet shouting objections while reporters scrambled for their phones. But Sophia only watched Gabriel, saw the exact moment his last remaining trust in humanity died. I was the one who suggested using shell companies to hide the toxic sites, James continued, his confession gaining momentum like a landslide. I drafted the contracts that made it nearly impossible to trace ownership back to Montenegro Enterprises. Gabriel trusted me to handle the legal complexities while he focused on building the renewable energy division. Are you saying Mr. Montenegro was unaware of these activities? Rebecca's voice carried just enough skepticism to plant doubt. Gabriel knew the sites existed, but I convinced him that gradual, quiet cleanup was better than public admission of guilt. I told him exposure would destroy the company and eliminate funding for our clean energy projects. I made him believe that secrecy served the greater good. Sophia felt sick, and not from morning sickness. She watched Gabriel's shoulders bow under the weight of his partner's betrayal, saw him realize that the man he'd trusted with his deepest secrets had been manipulating him for over a decade. Why? Are you coming forward now? Rebecca asked. James finally looked directly at Gabriel, tears streaming down his face. Because I've been offered immunity in exchange for my testimony, and because I can't let him take the fall for decisions I made. The rest of the day passed in a blur of technical testimony and character assassination. When court recessed, Sophia followed Gabriel into the empty hallway outside the courtroom, her heels clicking against marble as she caught up to him. Gabriel, wait. He turned, and the emptiness in his eyes made her step backward. This wasn't the passionate man who'd worshipped her body, or the tortured soul who'd confessed to letting his father die. This was someone hollow, scraped clean. Of hope? Come to gloat, he asked quietly. I didn't know, she said desperately. About the FBI investigation, about Rebecca being a federal prosecutor. I thought I was just taking a job with an environmental law firm. Does it matter? Gabriel leaned against the wall, suddenly looking older than his 34 years. James was right about one thing. I did know about the sites. I chose to trust his judgment, instead of doing what I knew was right. Those children died because I was too afraid of scandal to take responsibility. Sophia wanted to reach for him, to offer comfort, but the space between them felt like a chasm filled with dead children and broken promises. The baby moved yesterday, she said instead. For the first time I could really feel it. Gabriel's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a hunger so desperate it took her breath away. Boy or girl, too early to tell, but strong, active. She placed her hand on her stomach. The doctor says everything looks healthy. They stood in silence, two people who'd created life together, but couldn't bridge the distance between their opposing sides of a moral war. I won't keep you from the baby, Sophia said finally. Whatever happens with the trial, our child deserves to know their father. Gabriel's laugh was bitter. I'm facing 25 to life, Sophia. Our child is going to grow up visiting Daddy in federal prison. Before she could respond, Rebecca Martinez appeared at the end of the hallway, her expression unreadable as she approached. Mr. Montenegro, I'd like to speak with you privately. Gabriel's lawyer immediately stepped forward. My client won't answer any questions without counsel present. I'm not here to interrogate anyone, Rebecca said smoothly. I have a proposition that might interest you both. She led them to a conference room where federal agents waited with thick files and recording equipment. Sophia recognized the setup from movies, a plea bargain negotiation that would determine the rest of Gabriel's life. Mr. Montenegro, you're facing multiple federal charges that carry significant prison time, Rebecca began. But you have something we want more than your conviction. Gabriel remained silent, but Sophia could see the tension in his shoulders.
Ow.
Victor Montenegro wasn't just your father. He was the head of a network of corporations that has been systematically poisoning communities for 30 years. We know there are more sites, more companies, more victims than what we've uncovered. You have access to information that could help us prosecute dozens of other executives. What are you offering? Gabriel's lawyer asked. Complete cooperation. In exchange for immunity from prosecution. Full disclosure of all environmental crimes, all offshore accounts, all shell companies. Help us clean up every site and prosecute every person responsible. Gabriel was quiet for so long that Sophia wondered if he'd heard the offer. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but hollow. And if I refuse, then you go to trial, probably get convicted, and spend the rest of your life in prison, while the real architects of this environmental genocide continue operating with impunity. Sophia felt the baby kick, as if sensing the tension in the room. She looked at Gabriel, saw him weighing his father's legacy against their child's future. I need guarantees, Gabriel said finally. Not just immunity. I want assurance that every victim's family receives full compensation. I want independent oversight of all cleanup efforts. And I want protection for anyone who comes forward with information. Done, Rebecca agreed immediately. There's one more thing. Gabriel's eyes met Sophia's across the table. I want her removed from the prosecution team. She has a conflict of interest that compromises the case. Sophia's heart stopped. What? She's carrying my child, Gabriel continued, his voice flat and professional. Any prosecutor who's romantically involved with a key witness can't maintain objectivity. Rebecca's eyebrows shot up. Is this true? Before Sophia could answer, Gabriel was already signing the cooperation agreement, his signature sealing both their fates. Mr. Montenegro will need protective custody, Rebecca said, scanning the document. There are people who won't be happy about his decision to cooperate. As federal agents escorted Gabriel from the room, he paused at the door. Take care of yourself, Sophia, and our baby. Then he was gone, and Sophia was left staring at Rebecca Martinez, who was watching her with the calculating gaze of a predator who'd just cornered her prey. Well, Rebecca said, settling back in her chair, this changes everything. What do you mean? I mean, you're no longer a prosecutor, my dear. You're a witness. And witnesses don't get to choose which side they're on. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Sophia realized she'd been playing a game whose rules she'd never understood. Gabriel Montenegro had just sacrificed his freedom to protect their child, but in doing so, he'd also delivered her directly into the hands of people who might be more dangerous than any environmental criminal. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, and Sophia pressed her hand to her belly as Rebecca Martinez smiled like a shark scenting blood in the water. The safe house in Virginia looked like every suburban nightmare: beige walls, generic furniture, and windows that had been bulletproofed but made to look normal. Sophia sat at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, 7 months pregnant and wide awake, staring at surveillance photos that made her blood turn to ice water. Rebecca Martinez wasn't a federal prosecutor. She was a corporate fixer whose law firm specialized in burying environmental scandals for the highest bidder. The photos showed her meeting with executives from chemical companies, oil corporations, and pharmaceutical giants, all of whom had one thing in common: they were being threatened by Gabriel Montenegro's cooperation agreement. "How long have you known?" Sophia asked Agent Lisa Chen, the FBI handler who'd been assigned to protect her after Gabriel's identity was leaked to the press. "We suspected Martinez was dirty 3 months ago," Chen admitted, pouring coffee she couldn't drink while pregnant. "But we needed proof. Your relationship with Montenegro created the perfect opportunity to let her reveal her true agenda." "Sophia? Felt like she was drowning, so you used me. Used my baby. We used the situation to expose a conspiracy that goes back decades. Martinez's firm has been systematically destroying evidence, bribing judges, and eliminating witnesses for some of the worst environmental criminals in history." The baby kicked violently, as if sensing her distress. Sophia pressed both hands to her belly, trying to calm herself and the child, who had become an unwilling pawn in a game that kept expanding beyond anything she could have imagined. "Where's Gabriel?" Agent Chen's expression darkened. "That's classified." "In danger. Everyone involved in this case is in danger. That's why you're here." But Sophia was already moving, driven by an instinct she didn't fully understand. Gabriel had enemies who would kill to keep him quiet. She was the only person who knew how to find him. 3 hours later, she was breaking into Montenegro Enterprises headquarters using security codes Gabriel had whispered to her during their night together, passwords built from memories only she would know. The building was supposed to be empty, but light leaked from under Gabriel's office door. She found him sitting behind his father's massive desk, staring at architectural plans spread across the mahogany surface. He looked up when she entered, and the relief in his green eyes was quickly replaced by alarm. "Sophia, what are you doing here? It's not safe." "Nowhere is safe," she said, closing the door behind her. "Rebecca Martinez isn't who she claims to be. The FBI thinks she's been working for your father's network all along." Gabriel's hands stilled on the blueprints. "I know, I've known for weeks. Why do you think I insisted you be removed from the prosecution team?" Gabriel stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough to touch her. "Martinez was using you to get to me. Every conversation we had, every emotion she could exploit, she was feeding it back to the people who want me dead." Sophia felt the world shift beneath her feet. "The cooperation agreement was necessary to keep you and the baby safe. As long as I'm useful to the real FBI, they'll protect you. But the moment my testimony is complete..." Gabriel didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The baby chose that moment to kick so hard that Sophia gasped. Gabriel's eyes immediately dropped to her belly, his expression softening with wonder and fear. "May I?" he asked quietly. Sophia nodded, and Gabriel placed his warm palm against her stomach. The baby immediately calmed, as if recognizing its father's touch. "Strong," Gabriel murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Just like their mother. Gabriel, there's something else." Agent Chen showed me financial records. Montenegro Enterprises isn't just cooperating with the investigation. You've been liquidating assets, selling properties. You're planning to disappear. Gabriel's silence was answer enough. "Take me with you," Sophia said desperately. "Whatever you're planning, we can do it together." "I can't ask you to give up your life." "What life?" Sophia's voice cracked. "I can't practice law anymore. Everyone thinks I'm either a naive victim or a willing accomplice. The only thing I have left is this baby, and I won't raise our child alone while you're running from assassins." Gabriel studied her face in the dim light filtering through the office windows. "If we do this, there's no going back. New identities, new lives, no contact with anyone from our past, including Riley." The thought of never seeing her best friend again felt like a knife to the heart, but Sophia had already made her choice the moment she walked into this building. "I know." Gabriel nodded slowly, then walked to a wall safe hidden behind his father's portrait. Inside were passports, cash, and a small black device that looked like a sophisticated phone. This contains everything, he said, holding up the device. Every contaminated site, every cover-up, every name of everyone involved in 30 years of environmental crimes. If something happens to me, you give this to Agent Chen. Nothing's going to happen to you. Sophia, listen to me. Gabriel gripped her shoulders gently. The people we're up against have killed federal judges, eliminated witnesses, made entire families disappear. They won't hesitate to hurt you to get to me. Before she could respond, the building's lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in. Bathing everything in hellish red, Gabriel immediately moved to the window, peering down at the street below. 6 cars, all black, no license plates visible. His voice was deadly calm, as professional. Sophia felt ice water in her veins. Did they find us? Gabriel's expression hardened as he looked at her phone, still clutched in her hand. Agent Chen, she's been tracking you. The realization hit like a physical blow. Lisa Chen wasn't protecting her. She was using her as bait to draw Gabriel into the open. Alarms began wailing throughout the building. Gabriel grabbed Sophia's hand, pulling her toward a hidden door behind his bookshelf. Service elevator, he explained, ushering her inside. This goes directly to the parking garage. As the elevator descended, Gabriel programmed something into his phone with practiced efficiency. I'm transferring $50 million to an account in your name, he said. If we get separated, use the money to disappear. New identity, new life. Whatever you need to keep our baby safe. We're not getting separated. Gabriel looked at her with an expression that was equal parts love and heartbreak. Sophia, I need you to promise me something. If I don't make it out of this building, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to save me. Don't let guilt destroy our child's future. Gabriel *, promise me. The elevator shuddered to a stop. Through the small window in the door, they could see men in tactical gear moving through the parking garage like hunting wolves. I promise, Sophia whispered. Though the words felt like glass in her throat, Gabriel kissed her then, desperate and tender, pouring 3 months of separation and a lifetime of regret into the connection between their lips. When they broke apart, he pressed the black device into her hands. Whatever happens, this information gets to the real FBI. Not Chen, not Martinez. Agent David Rodriguez in the DC field office. It's the only one I trust. The elevator door opened with a soft ding that sounded like a death knell. Gabriel stepped out first, his body shielding Sophia as they moved toward his private car. They made it 15 feet before the shooting started. Glass exploded around them. As Gabriel shoved Sophia behind a concrete pillar, his body covering hers as bullets ricocheted off steel and stone. She could feel his heart pounding against her back, could smell his cologne mixed with fear and determination. The stairwell, he said, pointing to an emergency exit 20 yards away. When I say run, you go. Don't stop. Don't look back. About you? Gabriel's smile was heartbreaking in its tenderness. I'm going to buy you time. Before she could protest, he was moving, drawing the gunman's attention as he sprinted toward the opposite end of the garage. Sophia heard him shout something that sounded like a challenge, heard the tactical team's boots pounding across concrete as they gave chase. She ran, up 3 flights of emergency stairs, her pregnant body screaming in protest, the black device clutched against her chest like a talisman. Behind her, she could hear gunshots echoing through the building's steel skeleton. The roof access door was locked, but Gabriel's security code still worked. Sophia burst onto the rooftop just as a helicopter rose above the building's edge, its searchlight blazing like a second sun. But it wasn't a rescue. Agent Lisa Chen sat in the open doorway, a sniper rifle trained on Sophia's chest. Thank you for leading us to him, Chen called over the rotor noise, and thank you for carrying that device right to us. Sophia backed away from the helicopter, one hand protecting her belly, the other clutching the information that could save thousands of lives. You're going to kill a pregnant woman? I'm going to eliminate a threat to national security, Chen replied coldly. Gabriel Montenegro has information that could destabilize entire industries. The economic fallout would destroy millions of jobs. Children are dying. Children die every day. The economy is forever. The rifle's laser sight found Sophia's forehead just as another gunshot echoed from the building below. Is this one different? Final, Sophia felt something break inside her chest. A connection severed that left her gasping for breath. Gabriel. They'd killed Gabriel. Now Chen continued. You're going to give me that device, and then you're going to have a tragic accident. A grieving pregnant woman, driven to suicide by her lover's crimes. But Sophia was no longer listening. The rage that filled her was pure and clean, burning away fear and leaving only purpose. She thought of Maria Santos, of Gabriel's desperate confession in the cemetery, of their baby growing inside her like hope made flesh. You want the device? Sophia held it up, walking toward the edge of the roof. Come and get it. Chen's expression changed, the rifle swinging to track Sophia's movement. Don't be stupid. That fall will kill you and the baby. Sophia looked down at the street 40 stories below, then back at the woman who'd orchestrated their destruction. Maybe, but it'll also kill the only copy of information that could bring down your entire network. She was bluffing. Gabriela had said there were other copies, other safeguards. But Chen didn't know that. Stop! Chen shouted. But Sophia was already moving. She threw the device with all her strength, sending it arcing through the night air toward the building across the street. Chen's rifle tracked its path, the sniper torn between targets. In that moment of hesitation, Sophia heard the sound that would save her life. Police sirens, dozens of them, diverging on the building from every direction. Agent David Rodriguez had received Gabriel's final transmission. The real FBI had arrived. 6 months later, Sofia Montenegro stood in the garden of their safe house in Northern California, watching her 3-month-old daughter sleep in the afternoon sunlight. Alina had Gabriel's green eyes and his stubborn determination, evidenced by the way she fought sleep every night as if rest were surrender. The name on Sophia's new driver's license read Sarah Mitchell, but she still thought of herself as Sophia. Chen, environmental lawyer and mother of Gabriel Montenegro's child, some identities ran deeper than paperwork. The trials concluded yesterday, Agent Rodriguez said, joining her on the porch with a cup of coffee and a folder thick with legal documents. Rebecca Martinez got life without parole. Lisa Chen took a deal and testified against the entire network. 43 executives across 12 corporations, all convicted. Sophia adjusted Elena's blanket, not trusting herself to speak. Justice felt hollow when the man who'd made it possible wasn't there to see it. The cleanup efforts are fully funded, Rodriguez continued gently. Every contaminated site will be restored within 5 years. The families affected by the contamination will receive full compensation plus medical care for life. And the body they found in the parking garage. Rodriguez's expression grew carefully neutral. DNA confirmed it was James Harrison. He was shot trying to escape custody during the raid. Sophia had stopped believing in coincidences months ago. Gabriel Montenegro was officially dead, killed by corrupt federal agents during a failed arrest attempt. But James Harrison's body had been found with Gabriel's watch, Gabriel's wallet, and Gabriel's dental records that somehow matched perfectly, despite being obtained from a dentist who'd been dead for 3 years. The Montenegro estate has been fully liquidated, Rodriguez said, handing her the folder. Per his will, everything goes to his heir. Sophia didn't open the folder. She already knew what it contained. Ownership of a renewable energy empire worth $3 billion. All of it now legally belonging to Elena Montenegro, with her mother as trustee until the child turned 20. There's something else, Rodriguez said quietly. We found evidence that Gabriel had been planning his own death for months. New identity documents, offshore accounts, even surgical consultations for facial reconstruction. If he hadn't died in that parking garage, he would have disappeared anyway. But he did die, Sophia said firmly, not looking at the agent. Yes, Rodriguez agreed, understanding the weight of her words. Gabriel Montenegro died the night he chose to protect his family instead of protecting himself. After Rodriguez left, Sophia carried Alina inside to the nursery she'd decorated with butterflies and ocean scenes. The mobile above the crib played a lullaby that reminded her of jasmine-scented air and stolen kisses on hotel rooftops. Alina fussed as Sophia laid her down, her tiny fists waving in protest. I know, baby girl, Sophia whispered. I miss him. 2. She was changing Elena's diaper when she heard the soft knock at the back door. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 1 knock. The pattern Gabriel had taught her during their desperate escape from Montenegro? Enterprises. Sophia's heart stopped. She carried Alina with her to the door, her hand trembling as she turned the lock. A stranger stood on her doorstep, shorter than Gabriel, with surgical scars still visible along his hairline and jaw, his once green eyes now brown behind contact lenses. But she knew those hands, knew the way he held his left shoulder slightly higher than his right, knew the exact cadence of his breathing. Hello, Sophia. His voice was different too, rougher, damaged by whatever procedure had altered his vocal cords. But when he spoke her name, she heard the man who'd held her while she cried about dying coral reefs, who'd confessed his deepest sins in a graveyard at midnight. You're supposed to be dead, she whispered. Gabriel Montenegro is dead, he agreed, his transformed features arranging themselves into something like a smile. I'm Michael Chen now, environmental engineer, recently relocated from overseas. Specialize in water purification systems. Alina chose that moment to gurgle, reaching her tiny hands toward the stranger who was and wasn't her father. Gabriel Mickle stared at their daughter with an expression of wonder so pure it brought tears to Sophia's eyes. She's perfect, he breathed. She looks like you. She has your stubborn streak, Sophia said, stepping aside to let him enter. Ed, your eyes under those contacts. Gabriel moved carefully through the house, taking in the life Sophia had built without him. Baby bottles in the kitchen sink, law books stacked on the coffee table, Environmental Protection Agency reports scattered across the dining room table. You're still fighting, he observed. Someone has to. Besides, our daughter deserves to inherit a world worth living in. Gabriel turned to face her, and despite his altered appearance, his eyes held the same desperate love she remembered from their first night together. I can't ask you to forgive me for letting you think I was dead. You don't have to ask, Sophia said quietly. I figured it out weeks ago. James Harrison was left-handed. The body in the parking garage was shot by someone right-handed. Gabriel Montenegro might have been capable of many things, but he would never have been careless enough to leave that kind of evidence. They stood in her living room like strangers, the weight of 6 months of separation and a lifetime of deception between them. Alina babbled happily in Sophia's arms, oblivious to the tension crackling through the air. What happens now? Gabriel asked. I don't know, Sophia admitted. Michael Chen is a stranger to me. I fell in love with Gabriel Montenegro, flaws and all. I don't know who you are without the guilt and the empire and the family legacy. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his scarred features thoughtful. I'm the man who spent 6 months learning water purification engineering, so I could actually solve problems instead of just throwing money at them. I'm the father who wants to teach his daughter that our mistakes don't have to define us. I'm the person who realized that loving you was the first completely unselfish thing I'd ever done in my life. Alina reached for him again, her green eyes bright with recognition that transcended appearance. Gabriel looked at Sophia, asking permission with his expression. She placed their daughter in his arms. Gabriel held Alina like she was made of spun glass, his altered face soft with paternal love. Hello, little butterfly, he whispered. I'm your daddy. I'm sorry I was away for so long. Alina gurgled happily, her tiny hand closing around Gabriel's finger with surprising strength. She forgives easily, Sophia observed. Children are better at second chances than adults, Gabriel replied, not taking his eyes off their daughter. Maybe we could learn from her. Sophia watched the man she loved hold their child, saw the future spreading out before them like an uncharted ocean. There would be challenges, learning to trust again, building new identities together, raising Alina with the truth about her. Fathers passed. But there would also be adventures, justice to fight for, love to nurture, and hope to pass down to the next generation. Michael Chen, she said experimentally. Yes, would you like to stay for dinner? Gabriel looked up at her, his transformed face breaking into the first genuine smile she'd seen since the charity gala where everything began. I thought you'd never ask. As evening fell over their hidden valley, Sophia Montenegro Nichen sat beside Michael Chen Unai Gabriel Montenegro, watching their daughter sleep between them on the couch. Elena's breathing was soft and steady, her dreams filled with butterflies and clean water, and parents who'd learned that love was worth fighting for. Outside their windows, the world continued its complicated dance of justice and corruption, environmental destruction and redemption. But inside their sanctuary, three people who'd been broken by circumstance and betrayal had found a way to heal together. Gabriel reached for Sophia's hand, intertwining their fingers with the familiarity of lovers, and the tentative hope of strangers beginning again. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up on us. For protecting Alina. For believing that people can change." Sophia squeezed his hand, feeling their daughter's heartbeat where she slept against her chest, feeling the promise of tomorrow in Gabriel's careful touch. "We saved each other," she said simply, and in the growing darkness, lit only by the soft glow of Elena's nightlight casting butterfly shadows on the walls, that felt like enough. The end.